What do you make of this story, which is that our former colleague in the European Parliament, Rupert Lowe, has vowed to throw everything we have at ending Nigel Farage's Commons career if he ends up facing a by-election in his own constituency of Clacton over this £5 million undeclared pre-general election donation. I mean, look, Ben, let's get real, OK? Let's be candid with the audience and with one another. What do you think is going on here? Because it's quite obvious to me, things that I actually already know, that it's very handy for the Conservative Party to see this new entity come, take the battle directly towards Farage, to pull him down from being able to get a majority so that there can be deals, so that the Conservatives manage to get their hands back on the levers of power. If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, surely it's a duck, right?
I mean, the Tory party is exceptional in its preparedness to fight and the mechanisms it uses to fight to make sure that it survives somehow. And I mean, what you say politically is absolutely right. Restore and reform going at each other head on leaves the Tory party sort of in a resurgent position. And so you have to ask yourself, is there something more to this than meets the eye?
Right. And let's talk about is there something more than meets the eye, because at one point Rupert Lowe was invited to come and be the leader of Advance UK when you set up that political party, but he said he didn't want to.
He accepted the position and then changed his mind.
Why do you think he changed his mind?
It was in mid-June last year, 2025, he decided that he wanted to do a movement, not a political party.
Is this sort of mid-June when he was meeting with the Conservatives, do you think?
I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but I can say unequivocally that what triggered, I think, Rupert Lowe into launching Restore Britain was Jenrick leaving the Conservatives and joining Reform. When Jenrick, I think it was the 16th of Jan, you'll have to fact check me, 16th of Jan this year, when Jenrick went to Reform, Rupert put out a pretty irritated post on X, in which he said, you know, the country needs a proper, principled party. I thought one existed in Advance. We can debate that separately. But anyway, proper party, and I'm going to find a solution. You know, Jenrick's done the dirty and gone to Reform. And so there may, and that kind of implies there may have been some kind of sort of relationship between Jenrick and Rupert that was broken when Jenrick went to Reform. I think many people were hoping for a Jenrick-led Tory party because it would be, you know, to the so-called right of where Kemi is. Of course, Jenrick was a Remainer. You know, he was a floppy-haired Remainer until quite recently, believed in lockdowns and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I don't know the truth of what's going on. Obviously, you know, one can only try and piece these things together.
Indeed.
But it's not helpful having, I completely concede readily that it's not helpful having a plethora of parties on the so-called right. And that's why when Restore Britain started doing well in by-elections and, you know, they won those local elections in the Great Yarmouth area, they did do well in Makerfield, whether we like it or not.
Well, I mean, look, they did OK. I don't think you can sort of, you know, stand and say 7% is some sort of massive victory. They would say
no, but for a brand new party, for a brand new entity. Anyway, so at that point, I decided, well, Advance needs to take a step back. There's no point us, you know, muddying the waters further. Let Restore and Reform do what they need to do. And by the way, I think, Alex, that can be a helpful thing. Well,
the difficulty I see with this, OK, Ben, is that when looking back, as you know, I've been in politics for a very long time. For 2 decades, I have been, well, I talk about politics now rather than being in it. But so I understand how it works. I understand the operations, I understand the tactics, I understand the sort of people behind the scenes who nobody at home would have ever heard of, who have their hands on levers and how they tend to operate. But what I would say is this: in 2019, when the Brexit Party stood down all the candidates, something that you and I disapproved of because it was disenfranchising people, it was very easy for people to say, well, I'm not going to vote the Brexit Party, I will vote the Conservative Party instead. Now, the difficulty we have with this entity is its focus is on attacking and destroying Reform, OK? To the extent that if Restore Party can't get a whole slate of candidates in a snap general election, they have poisoned people against voting for anything else on the right. It's a wrecking ball. And that's what is so difficult about this current circumstance. It is not the right trying to sort of, you know, have a different sort of stakehold on the part of the political spectrum. Like I said, a lot of the convictions and ideologies are very, very, very similar. It comes down to numbers and delivery more than anything else. They seem to exist to try and destroy Farage, and that's it. And whether you love him or loathe him, right, I don't think that is politically constructive. I think that is actually doing the bidding of the sort of deep state and the establishment, who would love to see there not being a right-wing government in the United Kingdom.
But Reform's Achilles heel right now is this £5 million that was donated, gifted, whatever, to Farage. And that is going through a Parliamentary Standard Commissioner's assessment. It'll then, if the Commissioner thinks it's serious, and remember, the Commissioner is also adjudicating 17 failures by Farage to declare 380,000 quid, private jet flights and other things. So it's looking quite precarious for Farage from a parliamentary standards perspective. And if that forces a by-election, I'm afraid that is an own goal by Reform. That is something Reform didn't need to do. I don't understand why Farage didn't disclose that 5 million quid.
Yeah, I don't know.
Such a big figure.
I look at it and I think there's more. I feel like there's something about this story that we're not really discussing because, you know, when things suddenly get leaked to certain journalists, there are operations behind it. It's interesting. Piers Morgan has been on the BBC this morning and he says Nigel Farage is dead in the water and effectively done for after swallowing the controversial £5 million bung from Christopher Harborne. I don't think that is true. I think that if he were to stand, if he was forced into a by-election in Clacton, I think that he would potentially look like a martyr. I think it would be labelled as lawfare, and I think he would win in Clacton. I mean, look, this is what apparently a Westminster source has suggested neither the Labour Party nor the Tories actually want to push for a sanction requiring a by-election, amid fears that Farage will pose as a victim of the establishment and return with an increased majority. I can see
Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens.